this meeting.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. This is the first budget workshop for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
Can't hear you good.
Turn that on.
By chance, maybe turn this light off right here. I don't know if it's sure if it's a glare, maybe it's just my eyes, but. Thank
There
you,
we go,
sir.
that's better. And so I'll send this to you all also electronically. We didn't print out copies of this, but I can send it to you, and then if you would like it printed out, we can do that too. So I changed some of the slides. I didn't go through for the last 10 years. I think we've been looking at some of the same slides.
Jennifer, I hate
You
to
still
stop
can't
you.
hear me?
This thing's,
Can you hear me now?
it's not recording.
Oh.
Try it now.
Hello? Testing? No. Testing, testing.
It's not recording. Go ahead, we got that one up there.
Okay,
Just talk loud.
all right. So you don't really need me to talk into this because it's not going to make a difference?
Yeah, it will.
Oh, okay, all right. So before we get started, I'd like to recognize our new OMB coordinator, Mr. Ian Proverbs. I think all of you have met him, but if you haven't, he is new to our team and he's doing an outstanding job. I'm going to lead this discussion today, but he has already prepared our budget packets for our department heads, and they're ready to go out, given the outcome of this workshop and what direction that we have from you all. And so we'll be getting those out, and he will be compiling those together, and we will be presenting a budget back to you in July. And so on this first slide, what we've done is we've just taken the last 10 years. We got rid of all that stuff prior, and we started in 08-09, and we're showing the value of a mill, the percentage change from the year before, regardless of your millage rate. And then we're showing the millage rate, and we're showing the taxes levied. And as you go down, all those numbers are going to be what you've seen for many years until you get to the fiscal year that we're in right now, and that's 2018-2019. And you will see that the value of a mill today for this budget is $2,097,608,000. Well, when we adopted our budget in 18-19, that mill was not as much. So there were some adjustments after we went through our trim notice and so forth that adjusted that millage, the value of a mill, to increase it. And so it's important to note that in this fiscal year especially, the percentage change was then 9.78% that we realized. And our current millage rate is 8.2107. And so with that, the taxes levied are $17,222,000. So the next line, what I did, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a minute, but what I did is I estimated for 1920, there's no way to know if this number is correct. We do not have any preliminary numbers from the property appraiser as of now. We'll get our numbers in June 1 and then July 1. I just estimated a 3% increase. It's just for illustration purposes. And that 3% increase would be net of new construction. So the way the millage calculation works is if you have new construction, you get to realize that in the first year. And the 3%, I'm just using it as existing tax base, a 3% increase. If there's new construction, that would give you actually more revenue at the same millage rate, is the way that calculation works. And if you were to keep the same millage rate at 8.2107, then that would equate to $17,739,000. So at the very bottom of this slide, what I did is I estimated the rollback rate at the 3% increase. So if we were to realize a 3% increase in millage, and if we were to look at what our rollback rate might look like going into next fiscal year, that would be a 7.9716 millage rate.
Ms.
And that-
Davis?
Yes, sir.
Are you okay with us cutting you off?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just wanting to, for discussion's sake,
Mm-hmm.
note that is if it's at a conservative 3% increase.
Yes.
And I remember in our preliminary budget hearings last year, we were saying like a 3.1, maybe, I don't even think we ever even did a number at 5%. The realization in actuality was a 9.78% increase is what we're saying now is actually what occurred.
That's what occurred.
Yep. So okay. So with that being said, with a 3% increase that you're conservatively estimating at right now, if we implemented rollback, we would generate what we have, even if we lowered it to 7.9716.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
in the 1920, is that also including FP&L?
And the 1819 includes FP&L, and that's the difference.
Yep.
Okay,
That is the difference.
okay,
And so in 1920, it also includes it but it's not new. It's, it's
Right.
just existing. And so that is why this is not normal. This is an anomaly. This doesn't happen every
It's not a
year.
recurring every year thing.
No.
Right.
And
Okay.
this is not something that should occur again next year.
And
This
we
is
shouldn't bank on it, that's right.
correct.
But a 3% realization is probably a given based off of the forecast that we're seeing right now. I
Right.
mean,
yes.
At least for 20.
yes, ma'am, for the fall, for the upcoming fiscal. Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
So, what I want you to see between what I'd like for you to see is that you have an opportunity in this fiscal year, especially, to potentially lower your millage rate to a rollback rate and still realize a substantial.
Somebody write that down. Somebody write that down. Just want to point out that an A county administrator
Remember, we got
has
it's
noted, this is being recorded, right?
been recorded too.
Order's not
A
working.
county administrator
not working.
has declared that we could potentially, just the fact that a county administrator has declared that we could potentially lower the millage, I'm having a party this evening. You all are invited, but we can't discuss business. I'm just letting you know. It's been stated. So,
So you better not say anything else good.
Well, I have another slide that you might like.
here
Have
come my
time for
bubbles.
more slides at this time.
Here's a bad slide now.
So, just to kind of go along with the millage conversation, we've been talking about the MS BU or TU. Actually, I wrote BU at the top of that slide. That's an error. It should say TU. And so you asked us to come back with some more options, and this is part of that analysis. This is not all of that analysis. But I did want to talk about it today, and I did want to show it to you in a little bit more detail than what the write-up was. What you will see is all of our public safety departments, the current year's budget totaled at $17.4 million. And then I assigned a millage rate next to each one of those based off of the 3% conservative estimated value of a mill for next year and what that might look like. And when you look at that in totality, you'll see that that equals over 8 mills. So we just talked about a rollback rate at 7.9 mills, and then now we're looking at if we were to create an MSTU for all of public safety, that would be 8 mills. And so I'm not recommending that. I'm just wanting you to see what that looks like.
This is for illustration purposes so that we can visualize it.
Yes.
But let me ask you this, Jennifer, is that are you saying that, I believe what I'm understanding is that this is in excess of, this is a separate animal unto itself?
You would not do the 7.9 mils plus the 8 mils.
Yes.
This would be, you would have to replace your existing millage.
So you would take let's just use the sheriff, you would
Yeah.
take 5.9 out
Yes.
of the 7 or 8.2.
Yes.
You would take that out and then start over again. you would take another 1.2 out, start over again.
That's a way. That's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
way. So you could do all of it.
Uh-huh.
You could do a portion of it. You could do, none of it. You could
Okay.
do, and so something that's a little bit more. So the sheriff's department, EMS, and EM are all in the general fund, and they are funded out of ad valorem, if you will, and/or state revenue. But the East and West Fire are MSBU's currently, and they are not currently structured that way. And it's real important to note that for the fire districts, the existing MSBU, those are based on parcels. And so right now, if you had a property that had a home that was worth, say, $75,000, or a property that was worth $75,000, and then they got the $50,000 exemption, they would only be paying the MSTU portion at $25,000. And I haven't done those calculations versus right now they're paying a per parcel. And so if you have a property that's only worth 50 and they have the exemption, they're going to pay nothing. Whereas now they're paying, what,
something.
$60 or whatever it is.
We better leave
Mr.
that.
Chair, is that a difficult process to run? I mean, is that going to take you 6 weeks to run those numbers, or is that going to take you 6 months to run those numbers, or is it going to take you 2 weeks if you put it in and work with the property appraiser's office?
It won't take 6 months, and it wouldn't take 6 weeks. We can run those numbers, and we can do that.
Okay. But this isn't going to be like when Shane gave us the numbers on the garbage cans, right? I mean, you're actually going to run the numbers. You're not just going to go to Amazon.com.
No, it'll be a little
Do you
bit.
see anything wrong with the East-West Fire the way it is now?
I do.
I do, because it's East Fire.
It's way low.
No. I don't think East Fire is way low at all. I think
Well,
West
that-
Fire is disproportionately high.
I think that you have East Fire and West Fire, and I think that they are separated in such a way that East Fire is always running in the red, and West Fire is okay, but we've got to deal with East Fire in some way, shape, or form. And so you could pull them
Mr.
together.
Chair, I think we need to have a bigger drill down. I'm not disagreeing with you, Ms. Davis, but I'm thinking that I'm feeling that we need to have a bigger drill down and understand exactly what those numbers are historically and how they correlate back to East and West. And, I'm assuming that the 0.4 number associated with West Fire covers the city of LaBelle as well.
That does. They do
Yes.
not have a fire service. I was going to ask that question. What portion of that are we seeing with Pioneer and Montura is not being realized by the city of Clovis, and they have their own fire department? That's correct?
Yes, but we have interlocal agreements with both cities.
67%.
We fund
And-
them equally?
We fund them 67%.
Oh, both equally at 67%?
That's,
Yes.
Oh, wow. So it is. So it is.
But the numbers are different.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the percentage is the same, but the numbers are different. And then we have Montura, Pioneer, and
Uh-huh.
Felda.
So see, Mr. Chair, I'm uncomfortable. Even, first off, thank you for preparing this. This is exactly what we asked, to be able to see. But I can't make an educated decision, especially from a financial perspective, on either one of those fire departments right now, because there's so many unknown variables that I don't know, and not knowing from a capital improvement perspective versus a call versus their call schedule, how all that plays out. I would just love to know what those details are.
And we are working on that. We're working on the policies, the procedures, looking at redoing the interlocal agreements and bringing all that back to you. But for conversation's sake, for the budget, it's part of public safety. That's why I included it now.
Yes, ma'am.
But the other thing, Jennifer, it don't matter how you do it, it's still a tax. They're gonna pay it here or over here.
It is a tax.
So, you can either send them one bill or you can send them, boom, boom, break down 3 bills.
Well,
For Sheriff, EMS, and EM.
And if you're looking at millage rates with the MSTU, it's just as a matter of reminding everyone that both the cities have to agree. So whatever we do, whether we just did the sheriff or we just did the sheriff and EMS or we just did you know, if we included the fire, if we didn't include the fire, however we did it, the cities have to agree. And also the exemptions do apply on the value that we
Well,
just spoke about.
If you give the sheriff 5 point whatever it is, okay, yeah, I mean, and that's, goes into effect. When he wants more money, who does it go to? The people?
Well, that's only at the existing budget.
Yeah, I know it, but who would he go to? The people? He wouldn't come to the county commission anymore.
Well, you set the millage regardless. So you still have to set the millage regardless if you were to do this. And so if he wanted an increase and it went to 6.1 mils, for example, you know, then that is something that would still play out here in front of you all like it always does.
So to me, it's all the same.
So that's a way to look at it, yes. And so that is the third option, or you leave it as is. And so this is just for illustration purposes. We're going to talk more about this. You don't have to make any decisions today. But I started not to include this, but you asked for it, and I
was
think
good
you need to
information.
talk
No,
about it.
I had this as a note, so thank you.
Okay.
And I haven't had time to talk to you in the last couple of weeks, but this is something that I wanted to have information on because we did ask you specifically,
Mm-hmm.
could you break this out and show us what that looks like? And I think we all are 100% in agreement of wanting to see how that was.
Right.
No one's pushing this as an agenda. We're just saying we have colleagues throughout the state that have said this is a process that has worked for them. It makes it, in my opinion, it separates out some of the minutia, you know, instead of saying, I mean, I don't know if y'all remember. I bet you do remember. I remember when Commissioner Perry was on and we were going through the budget process. We were having a conversation about having to reduce one ambulance. You know, we just couldn't fund the people and the physical process of the ambulance going down the road. And that turned into the most political, heated discussion. And it was so disgusting to me to witness flyers coming out saying, you know, your commission wants to fire and lay off EMS, and the next step is going to be getting rid of county deputies. And there's nothing further from the truth, you know. And so I think this is a great way of looking at it and having an open door discussion and inviting all parties to come and contribute and show us where we can lean up some stuff, or, you know, if the call volume shows it what it is, Jennifer, and our overhead is X, then we have to find a way to fund X. Can you go back one slide again? So okay, so the 17.22 at current, and then go back to your original. So this would be 17.4 is what we would total if we fund them just at today's numbers, right?
That's today's numbers.
Yep, at 8.05.
Yeah, and it's partially, not all, but it's partially because you have state revenue money also that comes into the general fund. You have other revenues that come into the general fund. That's why they're not the same or less. And then also, obviously, the East and West Fire MSBU's that are not part of your general fund now.
Would that come out of there, the east-west fire, since it's MSBU?
Could it come, it could be,
It wouldn't be in that total, though.
well, you could do it however you could structure it however you
Yeah.
wanted to structure it. I just for illustration purposes, I just included all of public safety.
Yeah.
It's really good for everyone to see. Not everyone, when you speak about a mill, not everyone understands that. And when you do break it down this way, you know, like you said, the people in the general public, all they hear is taxes.
That's it.
And they, you know, you're not funding the sheriff, you're not funding the EMS, but when you break it down to this situation, now they can see exactly where the funding is at. And, you know, when they ask, well, can you roll to this, can you go to this? Well, this is where we're at. This is what the numbers dictate, and this is what we have to do to make sure you're safe, to make sure we have the deputies, make sure. So, and it is going to be interesting to see what's driving that between the east and the west, because there is quite a bit of difference. And that's the reason I was asking. I was curious if Clewiston was not in that portion, but if we're funding them equally, then there's a big driver there somewhere. So
And that's the area they cover.
The
might be
physical
more.
area?
Yeah.
it's really close.
Ms. Bird, I think if anything, I think the east fire would
Thought the east
actually
would
be
have been
physically
bigger.
larger. Yeah.
Should be.
But
Yeah.
I think you have budgets, and I don't have them in front of me, but I think that some of the budgets on so you have Montura and the city of Clewiston in east,
And Pioneer.
and
Nope,
then
Pioneer's the divider.
and Felda,
No, Pioneer is west. Pioneer, you're right.
LaBelle
Pioneer,
is
Felden,
west.
yeah, LaBelle.
So when you start looking at call volumes, I think you're going to see that you have,
Well, LaBelle runs probably 5 to 10 to more than all the other stations just about combined.
okay.
When you
So-
start looking at that, you're gonna find this, the party gonna be
Really?
right. Yes.
So
they're-
we'll bring those
So
statistics
that's something we do
back.
need to look at.
Right.
And that'll be good information to have.
And if the east is in the red, they gotta find out why the east is in the red.
So we're gonna get much deeper into these in a future budget workshop.
Right.
And so we'll get into each one of those fire MSBU's in much more detail,
Yes, ma'am.
in future
Is
workshops.
each one of them the same? For his MSBU?
Same
Not-
percentage, she said.
The percentage of what you're paying for their total budget allocation. So
Okay.
that's different, that's the variable. So you've
Okay.
got several different
Well,
variables.
let me ask another question though to that. Almost exact same question. Is each assessment the same? So like if you're paying $60 per dwelling on this side, is it the same as $60 per dwelling on that side? Because it's not in the city of
Yeah,
Clewiston.
I know I should have brought that with me.
Okay, but it matters. That's one
Yeah.
more thing that we can look into. I can't remember what, I think it's a per square footage up to
Yeah,
X.
I think we did adjust east a few years ago, and we increased it a few years ago.
Yep.
And I don't think it's more than LaBelle. I think we made it the same.
I think we did.
But I will clarify that and make sure that you all are aware.
And then I
of
think
what
too,
that-
Jennifer, in that discussion, if you could show us how many are actually exempt, how many we don't collect on,
Mm-hmm.
because that was something that just blew my mind whenever we were really detailing recreation and the MSBU's associated with recreation. How many people were not paying into the East County recreation? Just it didn't occur.
Well, I can tell you that, Ian, that is something he's working on right now. When we looked at some of these numbers and we looked at east versus west, our collection rate is higher on west than it is east.
Uh-huh.
And so he is looking at that MSBU in great detail right now, trying to figure out why and what that uncollectible rate is.
And Mr. Chair, not only why, but what's the ability to rectify that? You know, how does that play out? Because if it's I don't have two nickels rubbed together, okay, I understand that, but there's a recourse that has to be associated with that as well. It can't be the county's just able to run in a deficit.
Right.
You know,
The ones that come under the $25,000, do they pay,
For the
do
exemption,
they pay the MSBU's?
they do pay MSBU's, but they would not be paying MSTU's.
Okay.
Yep.
Then they wouldn't be paying much tax either.
no, they would be completely exempt.
Yeah, 25,000.
Yes, sir.
So this is just the key. I put priorities, and they are budget priorities. But we're going to talk in more qualitative respects now versus getting into the details of the numbers. But they all have to do with the budget, and they all have to do with whenever you get your budget back and your projected or proposed budget back from staff of what the kind of things that you're going to see line items in there. And so, obviously, our priority is economic development to enhance quality of life services, retain and recruit quality personnel, our facility upgrades that we're working on, and to have the proper reserve funds to be able to operate correctly. And so for economic development, for a millage rate, I believe that less taxes equal more economic development, and that we should look at balancing our budget at the rollback rate or less. I believe that we have, in order to foster more economic development, we need to define our targeted industries. You adopted an ordinance some time back regarding targeted industries and exemptions and so forth, and we've been looking at that. And to date, we're not seeing where those targeted industries have been defined. So we're looking at trying to figure out what that looks like, and we're going to bring that back to you if necessary to define what those targeted industries are, because I know I've been getting a lot of questions about that. I know our EDC office has been getting a lot of questions about that. And so we need to be able to let people know what that looks like to be able to attract more businesses coming in. And so code enforcement. and we need to focus, and we are, as you all are aware. We're focusing on code enforcement and our processes to clean up our environment to also create more of an economic positive environment. And then our regulations, we're continuing to review our building and development regulations. Margaret has some things that are coming before you tonight, I believe, with some of our fees that will help also in this area to create more economic friendly environments.
Say, Jennifer, talking with EDC, is one of the big holdbacks we have nothing to offer them when they come in?
Yes. And so, I mean, this is something you have certain exemptions that you've already approved. And so there's certain things that you can do without writing a check to someone, and still being responsible for your budget and for the rest of the constituents. And so those are the kind of things that, this is one example, but those are the kind of things that we want to be looking at.
We go back. I want to point out one of a strong thing that I disagree with on this, and it's not on there, and I'm kind of saddened that it's not on there, is I don't see a focus on infrastructure upgrade. And I think that needs to be the number one thing that the county can do, you know. And I would give you, look at what this commission has done prior. It doesn't matter who did it. Highway 80 is going to be expanded to 4 lanes by the time 2020 happens. I go back. I know I sound like a broken record, but the 80-27 intersection wasn't supposed to be looked at until 2035.
Right.
It is not an ideal intersection, but we're not averaging a death a month now.
Right.
You know, and I think that whether an airplane or a jet ever lands at Everglades or not is irrelevant to whether we need to put that force main in the ground on the south side of Highway 27, you know, moving west out of town, and then make ourselves, you know, when you talk about being attractive, I would love to ask the city of LaBelle, and I can pretty much answer this for the city of Clewiston, and then that also pertains to the county moving west or east. If you were to buy a lot right now in the city of Clewiston, can you turn dirt and hook up to a sewer line or a water line today and have what you need from an internet perspective, what you need from a utility perspective, all of those things that have to occur so that your business can open up 60, 90 days from now after you've turned dirt and went vertical and start generating a revenue? And the fact is you can't.
Right.
So how can we as a board implement processes and hammer on Tallahassee and hammer on DC to make sure that those things are occurring, and then get out of businesses' way, you know, is kind of my thoughts.
That's what they're doing right now in the city. They're annexing people from the county into the city so they can hook up with the water and sewer.
So the city of LaBelle
That's
right
the
now
same
is annexing
They
acreage.
annex Walmart in, Tractor
Uh-huh.
Supply in, and all that other around it is in the county.
Uh-huh.
So if somebody wants to come in and build, they annex it into the city and they'll hook them up.
And
Put
why?
'em- Put them on tax roll.
So that's what the city of LaBelle says until you become until you unincorporated county,
You gotta be annexed,
you have to be annexed in.
and then they'll hook you up.
Or
And if you.
said person could just run the sewer line. Is that what they would have to
Well,
do?
they'd have to go through the county then. So they just go through the city and sign up, annex it, hook it up, and they don't have to go through all the rigmarole.
No, they're going through rigmarole or paying more
Just
taxes.
outside the city limits does not have the capability you're talking about.
Say that again, sir.
We do not have the capabilities here, just the same thing that you're talking about with Clewiston, LaBelle does not have.
Yes, sir.
Walmart had to put a storage tank in because they couldn't get the adequate amount of water they needed from the city, even at that rate.
Yeah.
Well, I just spoke last week with a gentleman trying to put in a business 1 block out of the city limits on 29. No sewer, no water.
Yeah.
that's
And
some
Ms.
direct-
Davis, that's not a knock against anything
No.
that the county's done. I'm just saying that's where I think, you know, our focus has to be, laser of identification of what do we want to work on. And then now, because if we all as a community say in the 2019 calendar, LaBelle, Clewiston, and Henry County buy into force main running or flip the coin and it comes up heads, which, by the way, that's how the 80-27 intersection became number one on like 3 different. That's literally how it happened. They put things in a hat and they pulled it out. And at the Freddie meeting, Tris pulled out the 8027 intersection, it was number one. It got ranked number one. The point I'm making is that I think we need to have that kind of a meeting, everybody in the same room and saying, okay, I want to see, the water situation in LaBelle. That's something anecdotally that I hear, right? We're going to deal with that, and we're going to deal with it in the 2021, 2022 calendar. Fiscal, we're going to appropriate dollars, we're going to find it, or we're going to take it to a bond referendum, whatever we're going to do, but we're going to fix that. Because we know there's a corollary back to it, to return on investment, so on and so forth with the city of Clewiston. Hampton Inn, and Allen J, I've talked with both of those parties specifically and listened to some of the nightmares associated with those projects coming out of the ground, and it's directly correlated back to the lack of infrastructure and their abilities to go vertical and be gainfully employing people,
Do they
more
have
people.
sewer there?
They do, but I think the adequate supply, pressure, those types of things are not.
Big enough?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Same problem here. The developers coming in are having to put in lift stations in order to eat because it's not adequate.
That's
They
drilling
have
in
to-
your pocket.
That's right.
And why am I going to do that when I can go to Riverdale or Lehigh?
And that's where we're losing a lot of it.
That's it. Or the adverse is over there, and you can do it. I'm pretty sure you can do this in Belglade. You can do it in South Bay. I don't know. The reality is I don't live in those communities, so I don't really concern myself with drilling in and knowing exactly what they can. But I just think that we need to really focus on that, Ms. Davis.
So we'll bring some options for you to look at, and then by then session will be over.
Yep.
And we'll know how our appropriations went, and see what we can do in this next budget year. And so, as part of your proposed budget, when you get it back in July, something that I hope that you will see is a tourism project that we've talked about at the last few meetings, that the tourism board will recommend a project to enhance tourism, a capital project to enhance tourism in Hendry County, as well as enhance the quality of life for our constituents. Of course, and you'll see, and I did it without meaning to, but then I left it. The code enforcement is there again because it does enhance the environment for all our constituents from a quality of life perspective on many different fronts. Recreation. We are looking, and I attended the Hendry LaBelle Rec Board meeting last week with Commissioner Wills and Harris, and we are trying to come up with ways to complete the Forey Park once and for all. And so I
How much
hope-
money is that, Commissioner Chair?
I'm sorry.
How much is it going to take to complete the Forey Park?
To complete it, we're not quite there yet, but we have quite a bit of money in reserve that we're looking at trying to move forward with now, which could take us into next year, and then we'll be looking at, 1.7, 1.8 million?
We're looking at the lights for 5 fields, concession stand, and sod, but most of it, rest of it's completed.
So you got to go vertical with lights, you got to sod them, and you got to have a concession stand, and you guys would be like at 90%
Yes.
or even further.
About 90%, yeah.
And you think that's around a little over,
I think we're
little
looking
under
at
2?
1.8 million. Is that
Little under
correct?
2.
well, what they decided at the last meeting was to go ahead and go out to bid to get some of their numbers
get
were a
hard
little bit
cost.
older, and so they're getting updated numbers on the lights and the concession stand. And so they should have those back in the somewhat near future, and then they'll know what those numbers are. And so this is to open the gates. And so we are looking to open the gates because they haven't been opened. And they have a larger master plan for that park, but that's, what they're getting bids for right now is what they're looking at doing
So
now
like
to get the
phase
gates
1.
open.
Phase 1 is technically done, right?
No.
I thought y'all, you have a couple fields that are out there.
We have 5, we have backstops in the fields. They just need to be sodded.
Commissioner Harris, I would love to ask y'all to give us a workshop as an entire commission on that.
I would love that idea.
We can do that.
And I can just imagine that this is one of those things where this is a box that y'all need to have checked off. It's been out there, an animal running around for 8 to 10 years now. we had, remember the throes of gnashing of teeth and all of that because y'all raised it an extra $25. If I had to assume, I would assume that you all have banked a bunch of money and you're ready to do something. And so now if we can find a way to push that over the top and get it going, let's go.
Well,
I think that's a great idea. We should set that into motion now.
anyway, the money that we got, we was gonna spend it one way or the other. Then it'll come up to where we're gonna have to borrow money to keep the park going.
You ain't borrowing nothing. I know you. I mean, you're a fiscal conservative and you ain't having it. So I think if we have the money in your money that y'all have, because I know y'all
No, we
monitor
don't
that
have-
very well.
No, we got about 700,000.
You see what I mean? And so now you combine a couple extra hundred there. Now you can do some stuff.
But anyway, we can do maybe the lights for
Yeah.
that.
I guarantee you Musco will put a package together for you
But
that'll
then
blow
we-
your mind
we
on
still
a
have
5-field deal.
Other items that have to be there.
Yep.
You have to have a concession stand. Then when you build the fields, you gotta take care of them.
Commissioner Harris, and I agree, and I understand, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I will tell you, in this economy, with knowing what SOD is doing and stuff like that, I think that we could lean on some of the people that are out there as well. You would see that Bermuda on the rolls with some skid steers show up. I mean, I just think that things would happen, but I think that we need to look into that and get after it.
Got to get it in motion.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, so.
And so also to enhance programs countywide, and so that's East and West Recreation, and to be able to do more with programs. Several of you have spoken to me about enhancing programs, not just parks and so forth, but programs within East and West Recreation.
Programs that are taking place now in the east are not on the west.
Programs are taking place in the east that are not occurring on the
Got
west.
to get incorporated on the west just like it is in the east. The camps and stuff that go summer-wide do not happen here.
Huh?
And so there's a lot of things in recreation. The workshop's going to be a great opportunity to sit down and revamp this system, so.
Well, the reason for that was, the school board took it over. on
We've
this
been funding
side.
it for the last 2 years I've been on the board.
They've been doing it for many years in Harlem, but then, the school board took it over and said they were gonna run it through the same program except through the school board.
This is our third year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our funds was in the city of Clewiston,
Yeah,
so this will be our third year.
Of the county having it
Right.
back in the
School
East
board
County.
hasn't done it here.
Specifically to it. And a huge reason why we cut it is we were $174,000 in debt in East
Right.
County Rec and still running a program that was, in my opinion, it was mediocre at best, while the city of Clewiston had one uptown. But I don't think we've slayed that dragon. I still think that there's some things that need to be looked at. So it sounds good, Commissioner Wills, that you're receptive to us having this and chatting about it. I like the idea. I like it.
So is the school board still funding?
School board hasn't done
They-
anything.
They don't fund it.
They haven't even ran it.
They
They
do
run
the-
it through the after-school
they-
program?
They used Up to Grove facilities and Country Oaks.
The only
What
one
kind-
we've had is Zach's Friendship House, and that no longer exists.
So you
It
don't
is-
have a summer program at all in LaBelle?
Yeah, Romero, don't they still have
They run
some?
it through the YMCA.
I was gonna say, the YMCA runs a program in LaBelle.
They use Up to Grove and Country Oaks.
How
Okay.
much is it per child?
60, I
About
think.
$55 to $60.
Is it year-round?
No,
No,
summer
through the-
program.
Just the summer?
So,
Okay.
Now, this is stuff, like you said, we need to set this for today. We need to move with the budget. We've
Yeah.
run out of time, but this is something we do need to set up for a workshop, for sure.
And then I want to look at restructuring our internal departments to better address the needs of human services. We've had lots of conversations about mental health and transportation, and there's all these things that that we have great needs for, and so I want to potentially bring something back to you to better address those needs. And then for transportation, obviously, we need to enhance our transportation services, and we are looking at ways to do that and to bring something back to you for consideration. So in order to retain and recruit quality personnel within the rollback rate or actual decrease in tax proposal, I would like to be able, and I think we can, allocate a cost of living increase for the personnel in this year's budget and still accomplish those same things with the millage rate. We are and will be coming back to you, I believe, either at one of the meetings in May, compensation schedule for public safety. We have, we've been talking about that for some time with our EMS paramedic situation. And as part of our union negotiations, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but we have met and we have agreed on a schedule that everybody's happy with, that we will be bringing back to you to hopefully be able to retain what we have, and to be able to recruit more public safety personnel specifically. Provide training, encourage educational programs for existing staff, and something else that we're looking to do, and it's still money, but it's not in addition to the current budget, is to provide day off incentives for healthy workforce programs. So within our existing health insurance, there are some incentives that we have been talking about to and we won't go into the details, but there's several programs that they offer, and it's part of our insurance, and it's no additional cost. But if our workers were to complete those, a lot of different counties write a check. They give them $100, or they give them, something. And I know that we're not necessarily in that position to do that, but trying just to think out of the box. And if you all have other ideas, we'd love to hear them. But as a group, we thought that maybe providing a day off incentive if they completed these programs. And this isn't something they complete in a day or a week or two. It's several months.
The lifestyle change.
Yes. And so if they successfully completed those programs, we could offer programs like that. And then workforce training, do our part in local workforce training, create additional intern positions. You do have something on your agenda tonight from Shane as one of those items to create more intern positions to assist our departments, as well as provide experience for our local students and people going through training within our departments as appropriate. And then also, we're looking to create a volunteer program, and that is internal and external. Internal meaning at our last department head meeting, we talked about that a little bit, and our project for this year is with Habitat for Humanity, and that's where our employees, we're going to be doing some fundraising for a local Habitat for Humanity home, and we're going to get behind it as an organization and try to raise funds for some of those projects as
Mr.
well.
Chair, does that also mean you're going to put sweat equity into it and go vertical?
As well as allow our employees to
That's awesome.
participate in doing that. And
That's
then
cool.
Externally, create an environment that fosters local volunteers. So this is, retirees that are in our community. They may only be here part of the year, but they may be retired, engineers or doctors or craftsmen. It doesn't matter. And try to create a local volunteer program in our departments that are appropriate. And a lot of counties have this. If you go to other counties, you look on their websites, they have volunteer pages, and they have a listing of all the different departments. If you want to volunteer, call this number for this specific department, and I would like for us to work on that. And then we have facility upgrades. We're going to continue to repair and upgrade our existing facilities. Those upgrades and numbers specifically will come back to you in this proposed budget. We have the courthouse and the historical and the non-historical projects going on, as you're aware. We have the jail upgrades. The bids will be opened on May 1st. They've already done a walkthrough with the contractors. And so that will be coming shortly. The Clewiston sub-office, we're working on that. The RFP is going out. We have cemetery projects. Some of that stuff we're doing internally and is in progress of being done right now. At example, at Ridgeline, the water system and so forth. But some of the other more aesthetic things will come back before you for approval before we move forward. And then our other public safety and administrative buildings, anything that is lacking, we couple board
Jennifer,
meetings. Yes.
is all this gonna come out of the loan or part of it out of the county budget?
All of this will come out of the loan.
Okay.
Well, on the cemetery portion, I know we're talking about the aesthetics, but what about the renewing the part of Fort Deneau that's not even been touched yet? Are we moving forward on that? The property that's sitting across
For
on
the
phase one?
Yes, Shane's working on that. You've met with Rock, I believe, as of late, and he was
That's in this deal right here.
yeah, I didn't outline
Yes.
all of them, but that is part of
That's
it.
part of that project?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're gonna need that soon.
Yeah,
Can you go back to that?
yeah,
This was all identified going into last year's budget.
yes. All these projects you had approved as part of the loan. But I'm just letting you know kind of where we are on them, and we're continuing to move forward with them.
The jail upgrades, actually, on May 1st, it's just the construction manager at risk that'll be opened, right?
Correct.
So then they will design or implement
And they'll give you a maximum guaranteed price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lewiston sub-office. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, so that is upgrading and doing some work
Wow,
to,
Glades County in the house. Well, look out now. Whoa. I'm sorry, go ahead.
and doing some upgrades to the Clewiston sub-office. We are looking to consolidate the front entrance as much as possible.
Okay, so the signage and all that, you're wanting to redirect, so that goes back to that loan discussion we had. Okay,
Yes.
all right. I remember that meeting
Yeah.
now. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just thought you slid something in there, Miss
Oh,
Davis.
no.
Be good
Slick.
about that.
And then cemeteries is the overall aesthetics at Clewiston. I
Yes.
believe that's called Ridge Lawn.
Yes,
And then the Fort Deneau is in there as well, but that's all a catch-all.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously looking at what, if any, upgrades or things need to occur in the Harlem cemeteries.
yes, all
Okay.
of them,
cemeteries.
Okay.
yes.
And then other public safety and administration buildings.
Yeah, so the other public safety, a few board meetings ago, you approved contracts with a local contractor for new roofing, and so that is
Yeah.
underway. And then as part of one of our appropriation requests, we had asked for additional funding for, to harden the public safety buildings, and that doesn't look like it's made its way anywhere. So we're working on these top items. Ian has been keeping a spreadsheet on all of our expenses. We'll be bringing that to you as time goes along to see where we're at, and then if we are able to harden our public safety, I believe that we will have sufficient dollars to go ahead and move forward with hardening, identify what that looks like, and harden some of our public safety buildings as well.
Hey, so, Mr. Chair, Ms. Davis, on that, you said on that public safety process of all of that package, those have already gone out, those have been let, numbers have come back in. When will that come back before us for approval? Or
You mean for all that
the-
came
the-
before?
That was what was the last, I can't remember what package that was.
Those were just the roof.
Okay,
And so we haven't done anything on the actual hardening of the buildings yet. Those are just the roofs.
but the roofs, that's all, we've
It's
already
already
looked at
done.
that.
Yes.
Okay,
And most of those are underway already.
And they're
correct?
all, yeah, and if
Or
not close
completed.
to be completed. Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
And so, some good news. And I spoke with Steve earlier today, and Ian has looked at this as well to make sure we're all on the same page. We did have some prior year deficits in our general fund, as you're all aware, and that we've been working to eliminate over the last few years, and we've officially done that. At the end of last year, we were pretty much break even. And so going into this fiscal year, in 2019 year end, our revenues over expenditures will provide a positive reserve amount in our general fund. And then for the disaster relief, currently we have $419,000 in that fund with a little over $4 million due from other funds to give a fund balance of $4.5 million, and that has to do with Irma.
So Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
all the money that we borrowed out of disaster relief, have we paid it back?
No, no.
No. So
Okay.
so
We need to bring that up. Pay it back.
My man, really?
So before the meeting, you all got the letter from the governor that said that we were approved for the waiver. And so what that means is we would have been 75 federal, 12.5 state, 12.5 local, 75-25. And so now with this approval of the waiver, and we just got it, that means we will be made whole. We've only received a little over $7,000 to date from FEMA.
So we only owe
They don't
back
know us.
4,499,000. So
Yeah,
we owe that.
And the clerk,
And then we'll be whole.
the clerk said she needed that money.
Okay.
I do.
She
But-
does.
But what's important to note is we did fill the prior hole. And so we've been, in addition to all this FEMA stuff and hurricane stuff, we still had that issue, and it's been taken care of. And so I wanted to make sure you were all aware of that.
I'd also like to add to Ms. Davis's comments in that bottom line there, Commissioner Harris, just to make you feel a little bit better. I do think that this is a priority of Governor DeSantis's. Whether they're saying it or not, I do think that this is something that they're hammering on FEMA to be able to show. And obviously, we're coming into an election cycle, so they're gonna want to see some dollars flowing, because we're not the only county that's like this. Irma affected 64 of 67, and then Michael hammered on the Panhandle. And so I would think that if they got Michael money before they got Irma, the fallout from that would throw babies off of bridges. So
Then November will be here before you can turn around.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm surprised we got 7,000 now. I really am.
Yeah, I
And-
didn't figure we'd have anything.
Yeah, I didn't either.
are we all in agreement that, let's just say, for discussion's sake, that we won the lottery and we got our 4.08 from other funds? Are we going to go and do like we did the previous hurricane? Are we going to go and bail out our brothers and sisters again and clean them up? Or are we kind of using that as a learning lesson and saying, we need y'all to step up to yourselves?
My vote would be that it's been a learning lesson, and surely by now they have said contractors and funds in place to
And-
take care of it.
And you're talking about the two cities.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't just the two cities. It was the two cities. I believe you can make an argument that we also cleaned up Central County and we also cleaned up Port LaBelle utility systems.
Yeah.
And so,
I think we learned a lesson.
We took care of Hendry County, in my opinion, the way that we should have, because we had funds and we were able to sit and stand on deck.
Right.
But I think that, we really need to make sure that we have that conversation in a forward manner.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I say anything wrong, Mark, but we have made that separation, and each one of the cities are doing their own,
We're doing our own.
We're
Whether
doing
they took
our
care
own.
of What they needed to, I don't know. Did they sign contracts with the vendors? I don't know. We did an RP that had us each doing our own contracts.
Sections. Yes, sir.
Right.
I believe
I
that
believe LaBelle
both the city of LaBelle and the city of Clewiston did, but I can't speak to that completely.
I hope they did.
and/or they're in the process of doing it.
Gonna be running over here shortly, Ms. Davis.
Okay.
We gotta get.
It's my fault.
That's all right. And so our timelines, we spoke about June 1 estimate, tax value, July 1. July meeting will be where we set our trim, not to exceed. August 4th, the trim goes out. Our tentative and final budget hearings will be September 10th and 24th. And so now I wanted to give you a chance for comments, and I also wanted to ask you how you felt about, and I just snuck this in, if we had time to talk about it, a living wall project.
We're gonna build a wall.
So just to kind of let you know what a living wall is, when we were in Tallahassee, we saw a living wall. I couldn't tell you what building it was in, but I thought it was really, really spectacular, and I thought that it would be something that would work well here in Hendry County with us being as agricultural as we are. And it's just something that I wanted you to consider to maybe, for example, LaBelle Airport. It's a new facility, a new building. That might be something neat. It doesn't have to be as large as what they have there. And then we could have our local 4-H or, members maybe adopt it and do something like that. And I thought it would be kind of a cool project. So with that, I don't have anything else.
The only comment I got is, I think you, with the rollback rate, and can do everything, if you could get the rollback rate plus a little bit more, and I think we'll be ahead of the game. And I think you're already, thinking
When you say a little more, you mean,
Like 7.5 mils.
okay,
like a little bit more than the rollback. Because rollback rate is really not a tax, really not a break.
Even 7.
right.
We need to go back a little bit further. But that'll give you something to work on between now and July.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. That's very good information. I believe we got just a few minutes for the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, I would just say that, we all had a great discussion during the budget workshop last year, and we knew that there was going to be an increase. Obviously, we had a couple things that happened offline that helped with the numbers coming in the way that they did. But I really do think, to echo what Commissioner Harris is saying, we need to do everything in our power to implement a little bit below rollback and start looking at that right now.
We'll get to that as soon as we start getting some hard numbers in. We'll look at it and move forward from there. We're definitely going to do the best we can with the constituents. That's why we're up here. So,
And I can't wait to have that workshop.
thank you, everyone. We're going to take a